Hey guys, how's it going? This is Shahir from 5 Academy. Today we're going to be going through a full 60-minute, 60-question ACT math exam. It might not take us exactly 60 minutes because I'm going to be breaking down all the problems that we go through in this video, but we're going to try to go through them as fast as possible and make sure that you guys understand at the same time all of the skills that we're going to be reviewing here. The importance of going through tests like this is these problem types repeat from exam to exam. So the more familiar you become with these questions and the different ways they can show up, the more likely you are to actually getting them right on your exam on test day. So what I'd recommend you do is access this practice exam on our website. It's free. From there, try answering all the problems within 60 minutes, see how you do, and anything that you get wrong, you come back to this video and you review it. You could also just watch through this video to kind of see me go through the solution, but I think the most helpful for you is if you try the test yourself and then you watch this video. So go to the website. There's a link below. All you have to do is create a free account on the5academy.com and you'll be able to access this PDF and try the test for yourself. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to get started. Cool. It costs $8 for an adult ticket to a county fair and $C for a child ticket. The difference between the cost of 9 adult tickets and 15 child tickets is 40. Which of the following equations represents the relationship between A and C? So they say that the cost of 9 adult tickets and 15 child tickets is 40. So you think, okay, 15 minus 9 equals 40? Not really, because we're thinking this equation is in terms of cost. We need it to be in terms of cost. So something has to equal 40, as you see here. But the unit is dollars, and that means the unit on this side also has to be dollars. 15 is not dollars, and 9 is not dollars. But if I multiply 15 child tickets by the cost per child ticket, that's 15 times C. Let's say the cost is $7 per ticket. That ends up giving me a cost, right? It's if you want to do like the units analysis, it's like the number of tickets multiplied by dollars per ticket right? So this unit and this unit would cancel out. It's the number of tickets. You end up with just dollars if you want to do like the units analysis. So if I do 15C minus 9A or 9A minus 15C, either one of these should give me $40. The reason you see absolute value in some of these answer options is because you don't know which one is more. So we just take the absolute value in this case to specify that we want to get a positive number. That's the difference that we're looking for. But you have to make sure that you are matching the C's and A's up correctly with their corresponding number. In this case, it'd be 15C minus 9A because there's 9 adult, 15C. All right, that's how you do this one. The price of milk is $4 a gallon. The price decreases by 24%. So what is the new price? So whenever you deal with a percent increase or decrease, what you do is you take the original value and you multiply it by 1 plus or minus the percent, we'll call it XX, divided by 100. Okay, simple as that. So what's our original value? 4. 1 plus or minus, so in this case we're dealing with a decrease, so we're going to be decreasing by 24% divided by 100. This gives us 4. 1 minus 0.24 equals 4 times 0.76. If you do that on your calculator, you get 3.04. Okay, you notice again, it's just a matter of taking 100% and subtracting 24%. You can think of it that way. That's what this 1 really is. It's a 100 over 100 minus, plus or minus the percent that you're trying to increase or decrease by. If 15 minus 3x equals 24, then what is 4x? Let's first find out what x is. Minus 15, so we get negative 3x equals 9. That means x equal, if we divide both sides by negative 3, x is going to equal negative 3. Because, right, this is negative 3. So if I want to find 4 times x, that'll give me 4 times negative 3, which is going to be negative 12. In an equilateral triangle ABC, it is always true that the measure of ABC and BCA are what? So equilateral triangle, again, what does that mean? It's not exactly equilateral. Let's fix that. Okay, so that means that all the side lengths are equal and all the angles are equal. Okay, everything's equal. So if we're looking at any two angles, let's just say this is A, B, C. This question's asking about angle ABC, which would be this one, and then angle BCA, which would be this one. What do we know about these two? Well, I just told you that they're the same. So that's going to be that right there. Now, why do I know it's 60 degrees? Because the sum of the angle measures of a three-sided shape, aka a triangle, has to be 180 degrees. So this angle plus this angle plus this angle has to equal 180. If they're all equal, you can just divide by 3 and you get 60 degrees per angle. Just for some of the other options, sum to 90 degrees would not be correct because that means that you're looking at a right triangle. So for example, for any right triangle, you have one angle that's right. The other two are going to add up to 90 because this is 90, this is going to be something, and this is going to be something. In order for this to be 90, the leftover amount of angles, the leftover amount of degrees for the other two angles is going to be 90 in total. Sum to 180, that's not correct because the three angles sum to 180, not two, are each greater than 60. That's not true. They have to be exactly 60. And again, same thing here. The greatest common factor of 18, 45, and 81 is what? So the best way to do this is to just go through the answer options. So start with the largest number because we want to find what's the largest number, right? Is 18 a factor of 18? Yes. Is it a factor of 45? No. So it's not a factor at all. That answer option's out. Is 12 a factor of 18? Nope. So that answer option is out as well. Let's quickly. Is 9 a factor of this? Yes. Is it a factor of this? Yes. Is it a factor of this? Yes. So according to what the answer options have, 9 is the biggest number that works for all three. Right? That's the best way to answer those. The product of this is equivalent to what? So what we're going to do here is combine the 5 with the 2, the x with the x, and the y with the y. All right? So let's first do 5 times 2. That's 10. X squared times x to the third is going to be x to the 2 plus 3, which is going to be x to the fifth. When you have the same base, in this case x, and you are multiplying the two terms, like x to the n times x to the q, you'll always do x to the n plus q. All right? You always add. If you're dividing, you would subtract. Okay? So 10 to the x, 10 times x to the fifth, again, cancels out everything. We just need to distinguish y to the sixth versus y to the eighth. Or sorry, not y to the, I guess, yeah, still y to the eighth, right? So now we have 2 and 4. Again, make sure that you don't multiply the 2 and the 4. Here you're going to do y to the second times y to the fourth is equal to y to the 2 times 4? No. It's going to be equal to y to the 2 plus 4, which is y to the sixth. Okay, so make sure you don't mix up the multiplication and addition. When you multiply the entire exponential terms, such as y to the x and y to the z, you add the exponents, but you're actually multiplying the two terms. If you're ever not sure, just plug in numbers. So for example, if you want to know what 2 to the second times 2 to the fourth is, just plug in, see if it's equal to 2 to the sixth or 2 to the eighth. This will always be a good check to see if you're not going insane. If x is greater than 1, then which of the following has the least value? Let's just plug in our numbers. Let's just say x equals 3. So this equals 9, this equals square root of 3, which is a pretty small number, 1.73. Third root of x, so this is 3 to the, this is 3 to the 1 over 3. That's going to give you 1.44. This is going to give you 3 square root of 3, which is 3 to the 3 over 2. 3 to the 3 over 2, 5.19. Again, the reason I know this is because the 3 here is an exponent of 1, and the square root is really the same thing as exponent of half. So if you go back to the problem before where we multiplied two terms that have exponents, but they have the same base, you can combine the bases by just adding them. So 1 plus half gives you 3 over 2. Okay, square root of 2 times x is square root of 6. 6 to the half is equal to 2.449. So what's the smallest number? B. Actually, sorry, it's not B. It's C. Right. In the figure below, BAC measures 40, ABC measures 90, and points BC and D are collinear. What is the measure of ACD? Okay, so let's just label everything we know. So this is 90 degrees. BAC is 40 degrees. So I can find this angle right here just doing 180 minus 40 minus 90, right? Because angle ABC, so angle A, B, and C all have to add up to 180, right? So a plus b plus c is equal to 180. So let's just, I'm gonna backtrack. Forget that for a second. A plus b plus c equals 180. And again, when I talk about c, I'm talking about this c right here, not this one. I'm talking about the inside one that's inside the triangle. Okay, so I know angle A is 40. I know angle B is 90. I'll just label C as C. That equals 180. That means C equals 180 minus 90 minus 40. 180 minus 90 minus 40. It's 50. Okay. Now don't choose, I mean, obviously 50 is not even an answer option, so you can't make this mistake, but just label this. And now, given that this is collinear, right? What does that mean? That means that BCD is just a straight line. And the angle measure of a straight line is always 180 degrees. Now, if I split this up by doing like an angle here, and I say this is 20 degrees, that means that the rest of this is just whatever's left over. That'd be 160 degrees. Because 160 plus 20 gives you 180 for the total. Same thing applies here. This entire angle measure is 180. But you have this section that's 50, so what's left over? Well, if you do 180 minus 50, you get 130. Right? What polynomial must be added to x squared plus 4x so that the sum is 3x squared minus 8? So it's asking, what if I take x squared plus 4x, what do I have to add to it in order for the sum to equal 3x squared minus 8? Okay. So again, let's think of it this way. X squared plus 4x plus equals 3x squared minus 8. Now the way you're going to do this, in order to find this, again, it's just like saying 3 plus x equals 4. Well, the way you'd solve it is just subtract 3 on both sides, right? X equals 1. Let's do the same thing here, except we're going to subtract this entire equation on both sides. Okay, so now the problem, it really just becomes doing polynomial subtraction or addition. So 3x squared minus 8. And the way you do this is you typically want to line up your values by their exponents. So here we have a column of exponent is 2, exponent is 1, exponent is 0. When I say 0, it's just a constant value like minus 8. So 3x squared, or you can just do all of your addition or subtraction in line, like in one line horizontally. So I could do, I'll show you both methods. So 3x squared plus 0x minus 8 minus x squared. And again, I'm going to distribute the negative to both terms. So minus x squared minus x squared minus 4x. Okay, so let's just go down. So we're doing this. What's 3x squared minus x squared? 2x squared. What's 0x squared minus 0x minus 4x? Minus 4x. And then minus 8 minus 0 is just minus 8. So your answer is that right there. You could also, like I said, do everything in line. So 3x squared minus 8 minus x squared plus 4x is going to equal 3x squared minus 8. I'm going to distribute the negative here. Minus x squared minus 4x. Again, you just, the only terms to combine are the x squared ones. So it's just going to be equals 2x squared minus 4x minus 8. Same thing as that, right? Same thing as this as well. In a ball pit, 75% of the balls are yellow in color. If you randomly pick a ball from the ball pit, what is the probability that the ball picked is not one of the yellow balls? So it's saying if there's 100 balls in the pit, 75 is yellow. If you randomly pick a ball from the ball pit, what is the probability that the ball picked is not one of the yellow balls? So if 75 out of the 100 are yellow, that means that 25 out of 100 are not yellow. Okay, so now we just have to find a fraction that's equal to 25 out of 100. Well, you can just do the, reduction. You know, if you know that 25 out of 100 is a quarter, then you'll know that that's the answer. If you're not sure, just plug this in your calculator. You get 0.25, and then find what's the decimal equivalent of each of these. You'll find that the only one that's equal to 0.25 is A. Okay, so you can cheat through this one a little if you're not sure how to reduce the fraction, which is totally okay. But I recommend you learn that to have success on the exam. What is the slope of any line parallel to the line here? So we need to find the slope. In order to do that, we need to plug this into y equals mx plus b form. So let's do that. Okay, so we need to isolate the y, right? So let's start by removing the added or subtracted term. negative 8y is equal to negative 10x plus 24. Divide everything by negative 8. Y is equal to, we can reduce 10 over 8 to 5 over 4. The negatives cancel out, and then minus 3. So first, yeah, so the whole point of finding the slope is, I guess, just backtrack, right? It's asking for what's the slope of a line that's parallel. Two lines that are parallel have the same slope. Same slope. Okay, so you need to find the slope of the original line and just match that up. In this case, 5 over 4. Y equals m x plus b, where m is the term before the x and y is isolated. In the standard coordinate plane, a line segment has its points here and here. What are the coordinates of the midpoint? So the midpoint is literally, you just take the average of the x values and then the average of the y values. So what's the average of the x? It's just going to be whatever's right between. So what's right between 2 and 6? 4. What's right between 4 and 0? 2. Okay, so your answer is 4, 2. You could also visualize it if you're not sure. So 2, 4 is going to be up here. 6, 0, it's going to be about right here. Okay, so, you know, if you plotted it with all your grid markers and everything, you'd find the same answer. I'm not going to actually do all that because that's just too much work to describe here. The last method I'll kind of just go through is if you just use the average formula. So the midpoint formula I'll call x bar y bar is equal to x1 plus x2 over 2, comma y1 plus y2 over 2. Again, these are just averages. We're just taking the average here. This will end up being 2 plus 6 over 2, 4 plus 0 over 2. And again, these are the two x values I'm given, 2 and 6. These are the two y values I'm given, 4 and 0. This ends up giving you 2 plus 6, what? That's 8 over 2, 4, 2. Same thing. When y equals square root of x, which of the following expressions is equal to y to the half? So y equals square root of x. If I do to the half of both, really, what is square root of x? Square root of x is equal to x to the half. That's just a property of exponents. When you're doing the square root of any number, really if you've ever seen this kind of marking, right? X to the, so third root of x, that 3, this expression is really just x to the 1 over 3. So that 3 becomes the denominator of that exponent, where the numerator is always 1. Okay? So if I do a half of that, really what I'm doing is you're doing an exponent of an exponent. When you do an exponent of an exponent, you multiply the two exponents together and keep the base the same. So in this case, it would be 1 over 6. Not for our problem, but just for the example here. So in this case right here, x to the half would be x to the 1 over 4. That's what half times half is. That is a properties of exponents problem. There are a lot of examples of that on our website if you are interested in practicing it. Moving on. The perimeter of a parallelogram is 54 inches and one side measures 13 inches. What are the lengths in inches of the other three sides? Okay, so parallelogram. A parallelogram could look like this. It could just be a square. It could be this type of shape. It doesn't matter which one you choose, and it's not going to be exactly like any of those perhaps. But just choose one. Rectangles are usually the easiest. So 13. If it's a parallelogram, what are the properties of a parallelogram? All you need is the opposite pairs of sides to be parallel. So this one and this one are parallel. This one and this one are parallel, which it checks out in the case of a rectangle, square, or a rhombus. You also need the opposite angles to be the same. So in the example of like the rhombus, these angles are the same. These angles are the same. Okay, the opposite angles are the same. In the example of a rectangle, these angles are the same. Actually, all four are the same, which still meets the same criteria at the very least, right? Okay, so it says one side is equal to 13, which actually means that two sides are 13. You just need to find the other side. If you do the perimeter formula of a parallelogram, it's just going to be 2 times the, let's just call it the long side, plus 2 times the wide side. In this case, let's just say that the long side is 13. That's what we know. P equals 2 times 13 plus 2 times, I'll call it W. And we know the perimeter is actually 54. So I have an equation here that I can solve. 2 times 13 is 26, plus 2W is equal to 54. Subtract 26 on both sides, you end up getting 2W is equal to, what's 54 minus 26? 28. If I divide by 2 on both sides, get W is equal to 14. Okay, so I know 14 and 14. Now, this is definitely not drawn to scale, but the numbers reflect the actual shape. So the other 3 side lengths, apart from the 13, are 14, 14, and 13. Which of the following is a solution statement for x when y equals negative 6? X is greater than absolute value of negative 6. So how do you evaluate or solve absolute value inequalities? So there's 2 things you have to do. So the first step, you're gonna have 2 solutions. So it's gonna be one of these. Okay, there's two different solutions. The first solution is where you just take the absolute value statement and you remove the absolute value brackets. Okay, so we want to identify, and again, why are we doing this? We want to identify what's all the possible values of x that meet this condition. The thing that makes it weird is we're dealing with greater than or less than, and there's an absolute value in there. So that's going to kind of throw off some of our potential values of x. For example, if I just took away the absolute value brackets, this would completely make sense, right? Like if I plug in 10, I know that x equals 10, right? 10 is greater than negative 6. 10 is greater than positive 6. So it meets both conditions that this meets. But 3, right? If I plug in 3 for x, 3 is greater than negative 6, but it's not greater than 6, right? So you end up with like a range of numbers that works but doesn't work. Let me just explain through the solution here. So x is greater than negative 6. Any number that's bigger than negative 6 will work, right? Let me just make sure I got this correct. So if you do without the if you take away the absolute value bracket and you also do the negative, so you do x is greater than negative 6. Oh, and then we also have to flip the. Okay, you know what? I think the best way to, this one's a little bit tricky. I don't think it fits into the normal solution for absolute value. The best way to do it is to put this on the number line. So let's just say we have negative 6, we have positive 6. Okay, then we have 0 in the middle. So we know that we want to find x is greater than absolute value of negative 6. What are all the possible values of x? So anything here, like I just kind of displayed for you, if I plug in like negative 5, 0, 3, 4, 2.5, if I plug them into x, they're not going to be greater than the absolute value of negative 6. All the numbers, however, that have an absolute value greater than negative 6, like, for example, 7, negative 10, negative 100,000, 6.1, right? Doesn't matter if they're positive or negative, as long as the number that you see is bigger than 6, it meets the condition. So really what we have is a solution that is all the numbers to the left of here and to the right of here. So what does this look like in an equation form? So it would be x is less than negative 6 or x is greater than 6. All right. So I think the solution would actually look like this. We're going to take this and we're going to find 2 solutions. One is going to be, we just solve it. X is greater than absolute value of negative 6, which is x is greater than 6. The other is going to be, we take this and we, I believe we have to reverse the sign. X is less than negative 6. And that's where we get the solution going in the other direction. Okay, so now your typical absolute value problem requires a little bit of thought and consideration. The way I solved it, at least what's making sense to me right now, is just by graphing it. And that is this is the correct solution here. If x squared minus 6x equals 16, what are the possible values of x? So let's first, you can graph this one if you really wanted to, but we're going to just do it by hand. So x squared minus 6x equals 16. Let's subtract 16 on both sides. Okay, so now it's just a factoring problem. You could also use quadratic formula. So what are the factors of negative 16 that equal negative 6? X minus 8, x plus 2. So I'm going to choose negative 8 and positive 2 because they combine to give you negative 6, but they multiply to give you negative 16. For this, you might have to list out factors if you're not sure. This has to equal 0. X equals 8 or x. So and again, I'll kind of, I don't want to skip steps for you here. So the way, and then what we do here is, since we're multiplying two values and they equal 0 when you multiply them, that means one or both of them have to equal 0. So we can plug in x minus 8 equals 0 or x plus 2 equals 0. This gives us the two possible values of x that make this statement, aka this statement here, true, which is again the same thing as this statement. This is going to give you, if I add 8 on both sides, x equals 8. This is going to give you minus 2, x equals negative 2. Oh, whoops. D. The sides of an equilateral triangle are 5 centimeters long. One vertex of the triangle is at 5, 0, and a square coordinate grid marked in centimeter units. Which of the following points can also be a vertex of the triangle? Okay, so let's just draw that out. So we have an equilateral triangle. One vertex is at 5, 0. Let's just say this is 5. Okay. So think of all the ways that you could draw an equilateral triangle that has a vertex here. Just the most logical ways are, you could have a triangle that looks like, let me just draw one really quick. Okay, you can have one here where the vertex is, at the origin. But 0, 0 is not given as an option, so that's not an option. You could also have one here, where you have 10, 0. But again, that's not given as an option. Let's just go through the options that were given, actually. Would negative 5, 0 work? No, because that's too far. There's no way that you're going to reach all the way there with any equilateral triangle. Your equilateral triangle has to be either like this, or like this, or like this, or a rotated version of what I just went over. And that's just too far. So this one is out. 0, 5. So that's right here. There's no way you're going to reach that either, because even if I rotate this, one sec. Even if I rotate this, this dimension is not long enough. This dimension here is equal to this one, which is not equal to this one. So it's kind of like a 45, 45, 90 triangle then. Again, the hypotenuse of a 45, 45, 90 triangle is not the same as its leg. 0, negative 5, again, same issue. 5, 5, this one would actually work, because if I rotate this, and I think I had it about this long. Again, we're trying to make sure that this dimension is equal to this one, right? So this is 5, 5. This one works, right? And then the last one is negative 5, 5. This is too far. So your answer has to be D. Okay. A list contains the numbers 5, 12, 7, and 8. If two numbers were added to this list and the mean of the new list is 10, which pair of numbers could have been added to the list? So what's the mean of the original list? 5 plus 12 plus 7 plus 8 divided by 4 is equal to what? 5 plus 12 plus 7 plus 8 divided by 4 is equal to 8. So then we add two numbers. Let's just write out what that would look like conceptually. Over now, instead of doing divide by 6, now the total is 10. We want to find out what x and y could be. So let's just isolate x and y. Let's multiply. Let's take this average formula. And let me backtrack a little. Average is equal to the sum of the numbers divided by the number of numbers. So in this case, we had the sum here, the number of numbers here, and the average here. Now, what I'm doing now is I'm just going to take this formula and manipulate it. So let's just do, multiply by 6 on both sides. So we get 60 is equal to 5 plus, so it's all in 1, 5 plus 12 plus 7 plus 8 plus x plus y. Okay. Now I'm going to subtract Let's just combine all these terms here. So this gave me 32 plus x plus y. Let me just subtract 32 on both sides. That puts me here at 28 equals x plus y. So I don't know exactly what x and y are, but I know what they add up to. So I can just find an answer option that adds up to those same numbers. The only one that works is B. Jimmy wants to start a business, and he wants to start a business selling dinner. I think that's a typo. To begin his business, he must invest $5,000 in a workshop and tools. The cost to produce each table is $625, and the selling price will be $1,000. Accounting for the cost of his initial investment in a workshop and tools, which of the following expressions represents the profit in dollars that he will realize when X tables are made and sold? So his total cost, we're trying to model his profit, right? So think about one table. Let's just make a table for it. Yeah, I mean, inside joke, not inside joke, but no pun intended. Let's just make a table of profit and table sold. So when he has 0 sold, right, and then let's say he's starting his business, he must invest 5,000. So he's making an initial investment. His initial profit is essentially negative 5,000. Okay, but then he sells one table. How much money does he get out of it? Well, he has to produce it for $625. So again, he's going further in the negative. So you think, okay, it's negative 5,625. But actually, he's going to sell it, right? We're saying he sold one. He's going to sell it for 1,000. So it's going to be minus 5,625 plus 1,000. That gives you minus 4,625, right? Yeah. Right, and then he sells 2. You, again, you do the same thing. Really what you're doing here is your difference here, you're adding 375 each time. That's the difference between these two numbers. You're adding 375 each time. So you add another 375, you get negative 4, I have to find out what that is. 4250, right? You keep going. Now, how do you model this as an equation? You could just plug this into the y equals mx plus b formula. You know that your slope is really just going to be 375 because that's for every increase in one of your sold items, which you're trying to modify, right? Or you're trying to model, your profit is going to increase by 375. That's your rise over run. Your y-intercept is just going to equal the y value, the profit value, when your x value, aka the item sold, is equal to 0. That's going to be negative 5,000. So you end up with 375x minus 5,000. Okay? Again, think of it as he's putting himself in a $5,000 hole to start with, but with every x that he sells, he's adding 375. So if he sells 10, his profit is 375x times 10 minus $5,000. Okay? He'll still be in the negative. Now, I guess a follow-up question that you could try to solve is, at what point will he actually be profitable? What you'll have to do in order to solve that is just set this to be x and see when his profit is 0. 375x equals 5,000. Divide both sides by 375, and then see how many he has to have sold. You get 13.3 repeating. So once he sold 14, because you can't sell 13 and a half, once he sells 14, he'll be profitable. Actually have a positive profit. Okay, the following Venn diagram represents a class of 3rd grade students. 40% of the students eat veggies, and 54% of the students eat fruits. 15% of the students don't eat any veggies or fruits. What proportion eat both fruits and veggies? So what's going on here? I see 40, 54, and 15, and they don't add up to 100. They add up to a little more than 100%, right? So the thing that we have to account for is the overlap. So 40% eat veggies, 54% eat fruits, 15% don't eat anything. Okay. Now this one, the reason you see that these don't add up to, oh, actually 15% don't eat any fruits or veggies. Okay, so let me just make a let me add kind of another category here. So we're going to have the entire classroom represented by this diagram here. I just put a square around it to add like, this represents a set of people that are in the class. Okay? So we know that there's a group of people that eat either fruits or veggies or both. Now, there's within the square, within the entire class, there's 15% eat nothing. Okay? So that means that what's left for this is 85%. Okay, so this right here is now 85%. So within that 85%, you have this 40% and this 54%. Now, 40 plus 54 is 94. How do you reconcile those two conflicting values? Now, the reason they're conflicting is because this is accounting for the overlap, which is this region right here. So it's saying, if I was to draw it out like this group is 54% of the entire class. And then this group, let's just do it in orange, is 40% of the entire class. So how do you find how much overlap there is? Well, the overlap is just going to be how much you go over the amount that is the total. The way that looks is 54% plus 40% equals 94, whereas your total class amount is 85%. So that means the difference between these two, which is 9%, that's your overlap. That's what you're counting twice effectively. It's being counted twice in this region right here. You can visually see that it's being counted twice because it's being counted in this group and in this group. If you were to remove what's being counted twice and just count it once, then the values would be the same of the total percentages. But if you identify what the difference is, that'll tell you what's being counted twice. That's 9%. So 9% eat both fruits and veggies. Okay? If a class has 80 students, how many of the students eat fruits but not veggies? All right, so this is kind of, in a way, it's building off of this problem, but not really. So we know that 40% eat fruits, or they eat fruits and veggies, right? 40%. Let's kind of just get rid of all this. Let's just say this is 40. So out of that 40, you have either they eat this or they eat this, right? Either fruits and veggies or just fruits. And I just told you that this right here is 9% of the class. So you can just do the subtraction. This will give you 31%. Oh, so what's 31% of 80 students? So do 80, 0.31. 80 times 0.31, 24.8. Oh, I just realized I took the wrong percent. This is actually going to be, it doesn't impact the answer to the first question. It's actually 54%, okay? So we have to do 54% minus 9. That gives you 45%. So 45% of the class. So what's 0.45 times 80? 36. Okay? Hopefully that problem makes sense. What is the ratio of students who eat fruits to students who eat only fruits? Ratio of students who eat fruits. So again, this comes back to, what's the percent of people that are eating fruits? Only fruits? So again, eat fruits versus only fruits. That's really just saying this group versus the entire orange as a whole. So total eat fruits is 54% versus only fruits is 45%. So what's 54 to 45? I believe that would be, if you can take it as a fraction, kind of divide everything by 9, you get 6 to 5. If Jess has 5 different colored blocks, how many unique patterns can she make by stacking all 5 blocks? Five different colored blocks, how many unique patterns? So think of it this way. Stacking all 5 blocks. So you have 5 different spots to stack, right? I guess we'll do it vertical. X, 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 X. So for the first one, you have 5 possibilities. For this one, you have 4, right? Because there's only, one is taken away. Here you have 3, here you have 2, and then on the top you just put the last one. So what you get out of that is you multiply each of these, because for each of these 5 that you initially put, there are 4 potential possibilities that you can put on the next one. Let me kind of visualize that. That's going to be multiplication. So let's say there's, you put x1, x2, x3, x4, x5. This represents the first row, right? So for each of these, there are 4 different second blocks that you could put. I'll call it y1, y2, y3, y4. Again, here there's going to be 4 here, 4 here, 4 here, 4 here. So what I've done as a start is I have 5 for the first, and I'm multiplying that by 4. And then each of these is going to have its own 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Just want to make sure I'm actually presenting this to you correctly. This is the same as like a typical combination problem where it's like this person has, this many shirts, this many pants, this many socks, how many combinations. So you just multiply all the numbers. But the explanation for this one is just, I think it's a little bit different. So I want to make sure we get this right. So unique patterns. So yeah, each of these will have 2 that split off, 2 that split off. So if you just look at the x1, how many do you end up with here? You have, this is a combination. Then you have this as a combination, right? That's very messy, but like the combination that ends here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I think there's supposed to be 25. I probably just missed one. Yeah. No, did I miss one? 24, what's 24 times 5? 120. Okay, I think it's 24, right? That's just if you have x1 in the first spot. Now, let's say you have a different block in the first spot. That's a whole different set of 24 possibilities. There's another 24, another 24, another 24, which is all equal to 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. If you do 5 times 4 times 3 times 2, you get 120, which is equal to 5 factorial. Okay, this is kind of a visualization. It's also the same as a factorial problem. I'm just trying to think. So if you remember the combinations formula, so combinations versus permutations. So the combinations formula is this. Combination NR is equal to and I just had to look this up really quick because I do not remember it myself, but I want to break it down for you guys. So it's, and I'll describe all of this. So N is the number of items in the set, and R, number of items selected. Is there a better way to describe that? I think this is like the number of spots that you have. Okay. Number of items versus number of spots. Yeah, R is number of spots. Right. Okay, number of spots. So in this example, we're asked, we're basically doing C 5 combination 5, which is going to be, if you just plug them in, right? 5 factorial over 5 minus 5 factorial divided by 5 factorial. No, I believe this wouldn't be a combination problem. This would be a permutation. Permutation is the same thing, but you just remove this term down here. Permutation, if you do that, you end up getting P5 comma 5 is equal to 5 factorial over 5 minus 5 factorial. That gives you 120 over what's basically 0 factorial? Plug it into your calculator, you get 1. Okay? So the permutation formula is what you need to use here. As far as difference between permutation formula, again, let's say if I asked you how many different ways can you create a combination or a permutation of 3 different things. So if I said x, y, and z, how many combinations can you make? You'd have x and y and z, x and z. So again, you'd have, like I said, x and y and z and x. Okay? Now, this is what a combination would say if you use the combination formula. Now, a permutation would be if I said, now, let's say that order doesn't matter. I want more, I want everything. Even give me like, so in the combination formula, x, y would just count as one item. But in permutations, you could also do y, x. It's the same combination, but it's a different permutation because the order is different. The order is different, so it's counted if the order is different in a permutation, it's counted as a different permutation. So you'd actually have xy, you'd have yx, yz, zy, zx, and then xz. So you have 6 permutations, 3 combinations, okay? That's what we did here. Here you'd have 120 permutations, and yeah, but you'd actually only have one combination. There's only one way to combine, assuming that you're considering order to be important, right? Since there's only 5 items in 5 spots, there's only one way to combine them. But there's 120 ways to permute them, because a permutation is where you can change up the order and count different orders of the same items as their own set, basically. Okay? All right, we took a long time on that one, but hopefully that description helped. The parallelogram ABCD has a perimeter of 40 inches, angle DCB is 60 degrees, and the length of DA is 12 inches. What is the area of ABCD in square inches? So let's first label the information that we know. So we know perimeter is 40 inches, DCB is 60 degrees, and DA is 12. Secondly, we should remember that a parallelogram is just 2 sets of parallel sides. These are parallel, as they look. Now, given that they're parallel, that means that the opposite sides are also equal. So this is also going to be 12. And I know that these two are going to be the same. We'll just label them x. X plus 12 plus 12 has to equal 40. That's just the perimeter if you add up all the sides. That gives you 2x plus 24 is equal to 40. Subtract 24 on both sides. 2x equals 16. X equals 8. Okay, these are both equal to 8. All right, now we want to find the area. So in order to find the area, we need to multiply base times height. The thing is, we don't know the height, even though we know the base. You can't just multiply 8 times 12 because the 8 is not actually the height. The height is whatever this value is from top to bottom. The vertical height that is perpendicular to the base, okay? And you'll if you multiply just by 8 times 12, you'll get a number that's too big, and that's just not going to work. And also 8 times 12, that answer option isn't even there, so it wouldn't even just make sense. It wouldn't work. All right, so how do you actually do this? What you should do is take this little triangle right here. You know that this side length is 8, the hypotenuse. You know this angle here, so you can use the sine ratio to actually find the unknown side. Let me kind of draw that out to make it a little more clear. Okay, so this triangle right here corresponds to this section right here, okay? So we know 60 degrees. It's really just a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Hypotenuse is 8, and we want to find this. So if you remember your 30, 60, 90 triangle, then this will be familiar. So if I do sine of 60 degrees, that'll be equal to x over 8. I can solve for x using this. So multiply 8 on both sides. 8 sine 60 is equal to 8 times square root of 3 over 2. Which is just sine 60. If you do it on your calculator, you'll find should be about 0.86 times 8. Okay, so that gives us the height. Now base times height is equal to 8 square root of 3 over 2 times 12. That gives you 96 square root of 3 over 2, which is equal to 48 square root of 3. Answer option D. Okay? Moving on along. If CAB is 130 degrees and DAB is 3/5 of CAB, what is the angle measure of CAD? Okay, there's a lot of things going on. So CAB is 130. Then I'll do a different color. And DAB is 3/5 of CAB. So DAB is 3/5 of CAB. What's CAB? 130. So let's do 130 times 3/5. What does that give us? Open up my calculator. 130 times 0.6, 78 degrees. Okay, so DAB is 78 degrees. What is the angle measure of CAD? So CAD is just going to be right here. It's really just whatever's left. So 130 minus 78 is going to give you what's left, right? And that is going to be equal to 52. Quite simple. It's just a matter of this angle plus this one equals the total. In what order should these be listed to be arranged in decreasing order? So what I would recommend you do is just identify the decimal equivalents of each of these and then sort the decimal equivalents and then replace them with their fraction equivalents. So this is going to be 1.2. 9 over 13 is 0.69. 13 over 7, 1.857. 5 over 3, 1.6 repeating. Okay, so let's just sort these. 0.69, and it's asking for decreasing order. So we're going to start with the biggest. 1.857 is greater than 1.6 repeating, is greater than 1.2, is greater than 0.69. Okay, and then just replace them with their the equivalents. It's greater than 5 over 3, and you realize just based on the first two that the only correct one is C. Okay, the rest doesn't really matter. But this is true throughout. Moving along. The circle below has a center point C. This length of AC is the radius. The area of the circle is 30.25 pi centimeters squared. What is the circumference of the circle? Okay, so area is equal to pi r squared, and we're given that it is 30.25 pi. We can solve for r, just looking at this. So divide both sides by pi. R squared is equal to 30.25. Square root both sides. R is equal to, let me do that on my calculator, 30.25 to the 0.5 is equal to 5.5. That's this distance right here. So what is the circumference? Circumference is equal to 2 pi r. 2 times pi times 5.5 is equal to 11 pi. What is the value of log 216? You could just do log of 16 divided by log of 2. Using the formula log by is equal to log of y over log of b, and then from there it's just to plug into your calculator. So 16 log divided by 2 log is equal to 4. There's more ways to solve it. No, you don't really need to worry too much about it. Just use your calculator. A dance teacher charges this much per hour. Ballet flats cost this much per hour for a day rental. Has a dance lesson for 80 minutes and needs to rent shoes. How much does she owe after her lesson? Okay, so it's per hour. Let's just assume that the hourly cost is just really going to scale by the minute. So 80 minutes is like, so if 60 minutes is 1 hour, then it's like 1.3 repeating hours. You can just do it, same thing as 80 divided by 60, and that'll give you, what will that give you? That'll give you, actually it's 4 over 3. Yeah, 4 over 3, 4/3 of an hour. These two are equal. Okay, so 4/3 of an hour, 4/3 of the cost of the hourly cost, which is 4/3 times 30, plus $12.50 for the day rental, is going to give you your cost. So what's 30 times 4 divided by 3? That's obviously 40, plus $12.50 is equal to $52.50. For the functions here, what is the value of f of g of -2? So what is f of g of x going to be? This is where you have a composite function. You plug one function into the other. Literally what that means is you take g and you replace all of the values of x in f with g. So instead of x, I'm going to have 4x plus 5. And instead of x, I'm going to have 4x plus 5. Let's just write out what that looks like. So it's going to be something it used to be x squared minus 12x, right? Now it's going to be 4x plus 5 parentheses squared minus 12 parentheses 4x plus 5. And then you just simplify it. So it's 4x plus 5 squared. That's going to be 16x squared plus 40x plus 25 minus 48x minus 60. Right? Again, I'm just distributing. This is equal to 16x squared minus 8x minus 35. And then last bit, it asks us to evaluate at f of g of negative 2. So just plug in negative 2 for x. 16 times negative 2 squared minus 8 times negative 2 minus 35. That gives you 16 times 4 minus, that's going to be plus 16 minus 35. This is going to be 64 plus 16 minus 35, 45. That's my answer. The slope of the line with the equation y equals ax plus b is less than the slope of the line with this equation here. Which of the following statements must be true about the relationship between a and c? So a is the slope here, c is the slope here, and it says that the slope of this one, aka a, is less than the slope of the other one. It's b. The diameter in feet of logs in a lumber mill must satisfy the inequality d minus 5 is less than or equal to 0.01. What is the minimum diameter in feet such a log may have? Okay, so basically what this is saying is that let's just evaluate this right here and see what values it gives us. So there's two ways to evaluate a absolute value inequality, 0.01. So one way to do it is to just take away you're going to have two solutions. One is where you just take away the absolute value inequality sign and you solve it. So it's just going to be add 5 on both sides. D is less than or equal to 5.01. So this gives you your upper limit, right? You can't be any greater than 5.01. The other one is where you take the absolute value brackets away, but then you replace them with parentheses and put a negative on the outside. So we're gonna solve for d. So divide by negative 1. That's gonna give you d minus 5 is greater than or equal to negative 0.01. Add 5 on both sides. And again, notice how the sign switches. That happens whenever you multiply or divide by a negative number for an inequality. So it's going to be d is greater than or equal to 4.99. So this is the minimum value. So d basically has to be 4.99 is less than or equal to d is less than or equal to 5.01. Notice how this is equivalent to this, even though I just wrote it in a different order. Conceptually, it's the same thing, and then this is just equal to that. Just saying d must be between, again, interpreting this versus this, you see that it really just is telling you d must be no more than 0.01 away from 5. Okay? The diameter of the logs that you are, processing through this lumber mill must be no more than 0.01 feet from the desired diameter of 5. A bag contains 10 blue dots, 6 green dots, 8 teal dots, and 4 red dots. How many red dots must be added to the bag so that the probability of randomly picking a red dot is 1/3? What's currently the probability of picking a red one? Let's just plug it in to the probability formula. So what's the probability formula? The probability of anything x is equal to number of desired outcomes divided by the number of total outcomes. So what are the number of desired outcomes if we just, as it sits right now? So how many red do we have? 4. And what's the total? 10 plus 6 plus 8 plus 4. This gives you 16 plus 8 plus 4. So we have 4/28, which is equal to 1 out of 7. Okay, we want to increase that to 1 out of 3. So what you can do is just take that probability new red is equal to, we want it to be 1 out of 3, right? And we're going to do that by, we're going to add essentially things to the bag. So if I add 1 to the bag, let's say this is your original set, and then I know the colors don't match, but let's say I added a blue one. I added a blue one here, but I also added a blue one to the denominator, right? So I'm going to keep adding those until I get the probability that I want. Initially, this is going to be still close to 1/7, then maybe it'll get bigger, it'll get to 2/7. But we want to do this, we don't want to just keep plugging and chugging, that takes too long. What you can just do is plug in x and then solve for it. So you find what value of x is needed to give me the desired probability. How many do I have to add to the bag in order to get the probability I want? So you're going to add some number. You don't know what it is, but that's really how you solve it. So let's just solve this. How do we solve this equation now? You can just do cross multiply divide. So 4 plus x times 3 is equal to 10 plus 6 plus 8 plus 4 plus x. This is the same as 12 plus 3x is equal to all these numbers, 28 plus x. I can subtract x on both sides, subtract 12 on both sides, and then I get 2x is equal to 16 divided by 2, x is equal to 8. So once you add 8 red ones, you will end up with a probability of 1 over 3. You can just check it. So it's going to give you 12 over 36. That's 1 over 3. The inequality, this is equivalent to which of the following inequalities? It's just asking you to solve it. So let's do some distribution. Again, just like this. So 2x minus 10 is greater than 3x plus 3. Add 10 on both sides. Subtract 3x on both sides. Negative x is greater than 13. Divide by negative 1 just to get the negative to go away. X is less than negative 13. That right there. In the standard coordinate plane, the midpoint of AB is 5, 5, and the A is located at 2, negative 2. If x, y are the coordinates of B, what is the value of x plus y? Okay, so let's just plot this. I think looking at it is, that's probably the easiest way to interpret what's going on. So midpoint is at 5, 5, and A is located at 2, negative 2. Okay, A, midpoint. That means that your other point is going to be somewhere up here. Okay, so what I would do is I would just think how much do I have to go up and to the right to get from A to M, and then just do the same thing to get from M to B. So from A is we're looking at x, right? So this is the x dimension we're looking at. So to go from 2 to 5, we're going plus 3 into the right. So we're going to do the same thing up there. To go from negative 2 to 5, we're going plus 7. So we're going to do the same thing, plus 7. So imagine I take that midpoint, 5, 5, and this isn't proper math, but imagine I just added, 3 to the right and 7 up. I would get 8, 12. Now this is x and y. If I add these two together, I get 8 plus 12, that's 20. All right? So my new point in B was 8, 12. The parallel sides of the isosceles trapezoid shown below are 12 and 18. What is the distance in meters between these two sides? So this is similar to problem number, where is it? 24. So it's really the same exact solution. You're just going to turn this into a right triangle where it's a similar solution, not the exact same. So we know this is 5. We know... Okay, so since this is 12 and this is 18, the difference is obviously 6. And we know that this little section here has to be the same as this because these two are the same dimension. If these two were not the same dimension, then your parallelogram would actually look like that, where this one's shorter, this one's longer. In order for these two to still be parallel, that's just the way it would look like. So we know that these two dimensions are equal. They have to both be 3 because that's just the difference of 6 divided by 2. So this is 3. I can find this last side by doing the, this is the side that we're interested in, right? So I could just do Pythagorean theorem. So x squared plus 3 squared is equal to 5 squared. X squared is equal to 5 squared minus 3 squared. X is equal to square root of 25 minus 9, which is equal to square root of 16, which is equal to 4. Just a 3, 4, 5 triangle. Jerry is running for the, I think it's supposed to be Jerry's. Running for the month is shown in the table below. What is the difference between the mean and median distances Jerry ran this month? Okay, so this is a frequency table, frequency chart. So it's saying if you have a series of numbers, it's going to be quite long. It'll say this number 2 times, this number 5 times, this number 8 times. So what you could do is you could list them all out and get your median. It's the brute force method of doing it. Not the best way, but I'll just do it this way. So just keep crossing out until you get to the middle. See, it does get pretty close. 4 is in the middle, okay? And just make sure you cross out the same number on both sides. 7 and 7, okay? So median, 4. Now, what is the difference between mean and median? We need to find the mean. What you could just do in order, again, mean is equal to sum divided by number of numbers. So the sum is just going to be, you could just do 2 times 2 plus 3 times 5 plus 4 times 8. So it's 4 plus 15 plus 32. It's 51 divided by the total number of numbers. What's the number of days equal? So it's 2 plus 5 plus 8 is 15. That gives me 51 divided by 15, 3.4. Okay, so what's the difference between 3.4 and 4? 0.6. All right, so you've successfully found the mean and median. You just find the difference. The surface area of a cube is 54 square centimeters. What is the volume of the cube in cubic centimeters? Surface area, okay, so let's just think of a cube. If you've ever seen like a cube, the way it's kind of like, if it's ever laid out, it has 6 faces. It'll look like this. Right, and you fold it all together, it becomes a cube. But I'm not gonna, again, that's just, if you know it, you know it. If you don't, you don't. That's okay. Another way to visualize this is you draw a square. That's not a square, this is a square. And then you remember that you have, there's a cube, right? So you have a face here in the back. You have a face, I guess I'll color them. You have this face back here. 2, 3, right? 3 in the back. And then in the front you have 1, 2, 3. So it's 6. You could also just count by, there's a number of ways to count it, right? So the reason I'm saying the number of faces is important to know is because this total surface area is just 6 times the surface area of each face. Okay? If you miscount them, if you count them as like 7 or 8, you're going to get the wrong answer at the end of it, which is going to kind of throw you off. So the surface area of each face. What is the surface area of each face? It's just going to be 54 divided by 6. That gives you 9. So each face is 9 cm squared, okay? Now I can, if you remember the formula for area of a square, it's just going to be length times length, which is length squared. In this case, it's 9. So the length of each of these dimensions is going to be equal to 3. All right, and then now the last thing is volume is just equal to length cubed, which is going to be 3 to the third, which is 27. The number line below is the graph of which of the following inequalities. So here we have everything that looks like less than -2 and everything greater than or equal to 5. Right, so less than or equal to -2, greater than or equal to 5. So one way to do this is to just look at the direction of the arrow and make that your greater than or less than sign. Do that relative to the number. And since this is a solid rather than a hollow, it's going to be an equal to rather than just, it's going to be less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, rather than just less than or greater than. Same thing here, arrow going this way, x is greater than 5. Okay, these are your two inequalities. You see obviously here they're written in a different order, so we're just going to flip these, like -2 is greater than or equal to x, and then 5 is less than x. So which one matches? This one looks like it does. This one looks like it does not. 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 The answer has to be this. Another thing, just as far as the difference between or and and, for a case like this, you can't actually have and. For example, let's say just for example, the inequality looked like this instead. You had a number line, -2, 5, and it was something that looked like this. It was just the region in between. In this case, you would have and. But here you have to have or because you can't actually meet the condition of both inequalities. You can't be less than -2, but still be greater than 5. But here, if you're, what this is saying is you have to be greater than -2 and less than 5. So it's an and, right? Just so you understand the terminology there. The graph of y equals this passes through this. In the coordinate plane, what is the value of a? what you can do is just plug in the y value for y and the x value for x. And you end up with negative 36 equals negative 3 2a squared plus 12. There's only one unknown, just solve for it. So negative 12 on both sides minus 48 equals negative 3 times 4a squared. Negative 48 equals negative 12a squared. Divide both sides by negative 12. A squared equals 4. A equals plus or minus 2. And again, make sure you keep you take into account the plus or minus because it's a quadratic, so you can have a plus or a minus solution for that a value. The figure below consists of a square and two semicircles with dimensions as shown. What is the outside perimeter of the figure? Outside perimeter. Okay, so let's first just take into account. We have 10 plus 10, right? Forget this right here. I mean, it gives us the diameter of the circle. So how do we find the perimeter of this half circle and this half circle? Well, what we know is they're both half a circle and they both have the same radius of 5 or the same diameter, aka of 10, right? So if I want to find the circumference, I could really just take both the half circles and combine it into one actual circle with the same diameter or the same radius, and then just find the circumference. C equals 2 pi r equals pi times diameter, 10 pi, right? Pi times diameter, 10 pi. So your answer is just going to be 20, right? It's going to be 10 plus 10, right? This plus 10 pi, which is these two combined into 10 pi. That's 20 plus 10 pi. The coordinates of the endpoints of AB in the standard coordinate plane are this and this. A parallel line in the same plane has this point here. Which of the following is a point on this parallel line? Okay, so endpoints of AB, let's just kind of draw it out to make it a little easier to visualize, are 5, negative 4, and 11 up 2. Okay? A parallel line, so this is a line that we have, AB. A parallel line in the same plane has this point, 11 comma negative 4. 11 down 4. And it's parallel, so, right? 11, negative 4. Just label our points. Which of the following is a point on this parallel line? Okay, very interesting. So let's just keep in mind the quadrant that we're working in, right? So this point is all the way at 11, negative 4. So any point that you get that's way out here won't make sense. Way out here won't make sense. Way out here won't make sense. So let's just think. 5 comma 2 up here. Definitely doesn't make sense. 5 comma negative 2. Probably doesn't make sense because we're already at a y value of negative 4 down here. So that definitely will not work. Negative 1 up 14. It's up here. Nope. Negative 1, negative 16. This definitely could work. 1, negative 6. This might work as well. Let's just try 1, negative 6. The way we're going to verify this is first we need to come up with an equation for this, identify the slope, and then find an equation for this line right here. So the way we're going to identify an equation for this is just use the y equals mx plus b formula. First identify m by doing the slope formula. M equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1 equals 6 over 6 equals 1. Okay, so the slope is just 1. Now let's plug in the slope and one set of xy values into the equation and find b. So we're going to end up doing, let's just do 2 equals 1 times 11 plus b. That's just going to subtract 11 on both sides. B equals negative 9. Okay, so your equation is just y equals negative x plus 9. Or sorry, minus 9. All right, this is the equation of this line right here that has these 2 points. Now, again, we're looking for a line that has the same slope, but this point. So, again, what's that going to be? We know it's going to be y equals negative x plus b, we just have to identify the b. We can do that by plugging in this y value, x value, and y value. Negative 4 equals negative 11 plus b. Add 11 on both sides. B equals 7. Okay? So now we have y equals negative x plus 7. It's our other line. I can now verify whether this point or any of the other points cross through that line. Y equals, so let's just plug in answer option D. So negative 16 equals negative 1 plus 7. That's not true. Let's plug in D, or answer option E. Negative 6 equals negative 1 plus 7. This is equal to negative 6. That's true. So the answer option should be E. So hopefully that makes sense. Trying to make sure that actually works. 11 comma negative 4. Oh, 5 comma negative 4, 11 comma 2. Oh, I see where I made a mistake. This is actually a positive slope. I don't know why I made it a negative. So the b value is negative. So it's going to be y equals x minus 9. But that slope should not have been a negative 1. It should be a positive 1. Okay, so let's run that back. So yeah, let's do this again. We're going to plug in this point right here from the second line. Negative 4 equals x 11 plus b. Minus 11 minus 11. B equals negative 15. That makes sense now. Okay, so it's going to intersect the y-axis somewhere here. Now let's plug in answer option D. Negative 16 equals 1 minus, I'm sorry, hold on, x minus 15. Oh, sorry, negative 1 minus 15. Yeah, that makes sense because x is negative 1. And originally, your slope is positive. So it's just negative 1 minus 15. Yep, so the answer option D is actually correct. All right, cool. Awesome. Glad we got that one right. According to the measurements given in the figure below, which of the following expressions gives the distance in miles from the house to the car? House to the car. Okay, so we have an angle. We have the adjacent side, and we want to find the opposite. That looks like tan theta equals opposite over adjacent. Okay, so let's do tan of 41 equals, I'll call this x over 40. 40 times tan of 41 is going to give you x. 41 tan times 40 equals 34. 40 tan 41. We don't even need the number. That is the correct answer. If p and q are real numbers such that p is greater than 1 and q is less than 1, which of the following inequalities must be true? Let's just say p is equal to 3 and q is equal to negative 2. Okay, so is this true? Let's just try. 3 over negative 2 is greater than 1. That's not true. P to the third is greater than q. So let's just try that. So 3 to the third is greater than absolute value of negative 2. Hold on, it's the absolute value of this to the third is greater than absolute value of negative 2. That gives you 27 is greater than 2. It is true. Now, what's going to happen here? I think this would always be true because p is always a positive number. Q is always going to be a negative number. Oh, yeah, and since this is cubed, well, no, hold on. Let's say p is equal to 3 and q is equal to negative 2,000. Then this one will not be true because it'll be like 27 is greater than 2,000. It's not true. If you have a very small p and a very large q, as far as magnitude, it's not going to work. All right, let's see here. P squared plus 1 greater than q squared plus 1. I think this one will be true. So like 3 squared plus 1 is greater than negative 2 squared plus 1. That gives you 10 is greater than 5. It is true, but again, if you have a very large q, it's not going to be true because it's square. P to the negative 4 is greater than q to the negative 4. Again, if you have a large if you have a very large q, so again, I'll just show you an example. This is the same thing as saying 1 over p to the 4 is greater than 1 over q to the 4. So if you have a very large p, then this entire thing is going to be, if you have a large p and a small q, this is going to be larger. If you have a large q and a small p, this is going to be larger. So again, not really true. In this case, let's see what's happening here. 3 over 6 minus 4 is greater than negative 2 over 6 minus 4. So half minus 4, that's going to give you negative 3.5 is greater than 2 over 6 negative minus 4, negative 4.33. It is true. I think this is always going to be true because if you, let's say you do this, right? You can just add 4 on both sides, really just cancel this out, and then cancel out the divide by 6. You're always going to have p is greater than q. But actually for all of these, you can really evaluate. You can go ahead and multiply this by q on both sides, for example, or subtract 1 on both sides, for example, or put these to the 4th, for example, and you can identify equivalent expressions. Is p always going to be greater than q? Maybe. It's always going to be greater than 1. I guess you can't extrapolate this too much. But at least in the case here, when you plug in numbers, no matter what you plug in, you'll see that p will always be greater than q. With the first example, I'd be a little careful. Same thing with the second one, but with these last three, the PQ statement, if you just simplify it, does end up being true. So what is the sum of the first three terms of the arithmetic sequence in which the fourth term is 10 and the eighth term is 21? So A4 is equal to 10, A8 is equal to 21, and they're both arithmetic, so this is the general formula. Okay, so first what I'm going to do is just plug these into the formula, and then I'm going to subtract the formula to find A1 and A10, or A1 and the common difference D. And then once I have the common difference in A1, I can just find A2 and A3 and add them all up, okay? So let's plug these in. A4 is equal to 10, and that's going to be equal to A1 plus 4 minus 1 times D is equal to A1 plus 8 minus 1 times D. Simplify this, A1 plus 3D. Simplify this, A1 plus 7D. And again, this is equal to 10, this is equal to 21. So let me just subtract these entire things. Subtract. So I get A1 minus A1 is 0. 3D minus 7D is 4D negative. And this is equal to negative 11. Okay? So if I divide by negative 4, I get D equals 11 over 4. That's my common difference. Let me plug that into either one of the equations, and I can solve for A1. So 21 is equal to A1 plus 7 times 11 over 4. This is equal to 7 times 11 over 4. It's equal to 19.25. Plus A1, right? This is equal to 21. So let me just subtract 19.25 on both sides. A1 is equal to 1.75. All right, I have this. These are the key pieces of information I need to solve this. So A1 is equal to 1.75. A2 is equal to 1.75 plus 11 over 4. And then A3 is equal to 1.75 plus 2 times 11 over 4. Right, because you're adding it twice. So I get 1.75 times 3 plus 11. Really, it's 33 over 4. 13 and a half. That is my answer here. Okay, hopefully that made sense. What is the surface area of this prism with the dimensions indicated? So really it's just going to be this surface, which we have a duplicate of in the back. So it's the surface area of this multiplied by 2. Then this surface plus the duplicate of it that we have in the back here. And then this surface, which we have the duplicate of in the bottom here, okay? You see it's a total of 3 faces in the back. And then 3 faces in the front. Really what you're going to do is multiply this and this, this and this, this and this, and add them together. Oh, and then multiply everything by 2. 11 8 times 2 plus 8 times 6 times 2 plus 6 times 11 times 2. This gives you 11 times 8 plus 8 times 6 plus 6 times 11 times 2, 404. Okay. In the figure below, AB is parallel to DE. DC bisects BDE. BDE. Okay. So yeah, okay. So DC bisects BDE. BC bisects DBA, meaning it cuts the angle in half. And if the measure of DBA is 108, what is the measure of DCB? Okay. So a few things going on. These two are parallel, which means that this angle measure here plus this one have to add up to 180. Why is that? Think of it this way. So imagine you're on a car, you're driving this way, and then you turn right, now you're driving this way, and you turn right again, and now you're driving this way. What you did is a full 180 degree turn because you went like this, basically, right? And those two lines are parallel, your starting line and your finishing line. So you had to have turned 180 degrees. Again, it's the same thing. It's the same reason why a straight line is a 180 degree angle. You're really just doing this angle measure here. So this angle plus this one add up to 180. All right. Now, why am I telling you that? Because you're going to need that piece of information to take this 108, extrapolate it to find what's actually inside this triangle. The way you're going to do that is, first, since we know that this line bisects the angle, and the entire angle is 108, we can cut that in half and get 54 and 54. I'll put it in a different color. So 54, 54, okay? That means that, again, what's here is just going to be 180 minus 108, which is 72. This is 72. Again, we can cut that in half. You get 36, 36. So now I know what's inside this triangle, right? There's a, let's draw that a little better. There's a 36 here. There's a 54 here. So I can find the remaining. This is just going to be 90 if you do the math. Okay. So it's a 90 degree angle in the middle. Interesting how that works out. Really, because it's because it's bisecting two angles that add up to 180 degrees. All right, hopefully that made sense. Only trout, bass, and pikefish are in Great Lake Pond. The ratio of trout to the total amount of fish in the pond is this, and the ratio of bass to the total amount of fish is this. If a fisherman catches a single fish at random, what type of fish it is most likely to be? Okay. So first, let's just find the percentage that each one makes up. So there's three types of fish. 1, 2, 3. If we know the percentage, we know the percentage random chance of getting it. So trout is 64 over 195. That's 32.8%. Bass is 22 to 65. 33.8. And then the other one, it's the way the problem is set up. I guess the way it's worded, you're not really sure if the pike is taking up the rest of the percentage. So if I do 1 minus 32.8 minus 33.8, you end up putting 33.4. So either without that assumption, you're going to end up with E, but if you do make the assumption, it's going to be B. So we're going to move on. What is the product of the complex numbers here? Just multiply them. So it's the same thing as foiling. So you're going to do first outer, inner, last. Negative 6i times 6i plus negative 6i times 6 plus 6i plus 6 times 6. Okay, this is going to give you negative 36i squared minus 36i plus 36i plus 36. This is going to give you these two in the middle cancel out. And then this becomes a positive 36 because I squared is equal to negative 1. So it's really just negative 36 times negative 1 plus 36 gives you 72. What is the fraction that lies 2/3 of the way between these two? So 1/3, 2/3 of the way to 3/5. Okay. The way you could do this is just find the difference, take 2/3 of the difference, and then add it on to the lower one. Or convert these to decimal form, 0.33, 0.6, find the difference on your calculator, and then find the decimal equivalent, and then just do that. So 0.6 minus 1 divided by 3 minus 0.6. So you get 0.26 repeating, and then we're going to take 2/3 of that. You get 0.178, sorry, 0.17 repeating. Now we're going to add that to 0.3 repeating. So 0.6 minus 1 divided by 3 plus 1/3. Hold on, I'm just trying to visualize this. 1 divided by 3 is that, times 2 divided by 3 plus 1 divided by 3. Okay, so it gives you 0.51 repeating. So this is the number, this is the answer, okay? Because this is the difference. This is 2/3 of difference, and this is 1/3 plus 2/3 of difference. Okay, so 0.51 repeating. Just check which of the answer options is 0.51 repeating. Not A. 21 divided by 40. Not that. 23 divided by 45. That one looks like it is it. 28 divided by 51. Just check all these on your calculator because you have it. Why not use it? So it looks like it's answer option C. To make an 800-piece puzzle more challenging, a puzzle company includes 10 extra pieces in the box along with the 800 pieces, and those 10 extra pieces do not fit anywhere. If you buy such a box puzzle and break the seal and immediately select 2 pieces at random, replacing the piece after picking the first, what is the probability that at least one of them will be one of the extra pieces? So the probability of anything is going to be the number of desired outcomes divided by the number of total. So what's the number of desired outcomes? We want to pick out of these 10 extra pieces, right? 10 outcomes divided by what's the total? It's 800 pieces plus 10 extra pieces. So 800 plus 10. That's going to give you 10 over 810. So what's the probability that at least one of them will be one of the extra pieces? So this is the probability of having it happen once, but having it happen at least once when you're choosing twice, maybe you'll just double this. Yeah, I believe you double it. You do the probability of event 1 plus the probability of getting it on the second time, or essentially just double the probability. So it ended up being, this is actually 0.012345. If you multiply by 2, you end up getting 0.02469, which you can round up to 0.025. Answer is going to be A. What is the 240 digit after the decimal point and the repeating decimal here? So if the repeating decimal is this, 0.1497, 1497, 1497, you can clearly see a pattern. You're not going to continue that out for 245 digits. That takes too long. But what you can notice is that every fourth digit is going to be 7. Right? So if I see this pattern here, if 245 is just divisible by 4, like these numbers here, then I know it's going to be a 7. Now, 245 is not divisible by 4. But 246, let's try 246, probably not. How about 244? 244 is divisible by 4. That means it's going to be a 7. So if I just took this, for example, I said this is the 244th digit. That means the 245th is going to be a 1. Okay, because it follows the same pattern. You can just apply it early to find what the repetition is, and then just apply that to a later number. Company A wants to hire 18 new employees. The diagram below illustrates a part of the process of the job application. The 18 employees will be selected from an applicant pool of 90 people. Hiring record shows that only 30% of applicants who apply are invited to be interviewed. Of those applicants who are interviewed, only 2/3 are hired. If the same trend continues, how many people need to apply to work at Company A to have 90 new employees at Company A? Okay. So it gives us an example scenario, and then it says if we want to scale that up to 90. Okay. So let's kind of put these numbers in this table in the right spot. The 18 employees from an applicant pool of 90 people. So this is 90. Only 30% of applicants who apply are invited to be interviewed. 30, right? So this is 30%. And let's label percents versus just numbers. 70%. Of those applicants interviewed, only 2/3 are hired. That means 1/3. Okay. So if you take 90 and then you do 30% of that and then 2/3 of that, then you actually get hired. So that's a total of, again, 90 times 0.3 times 2 divided by 3. That's about 18 people. Right? So it's saying this is how you get to 18. You start with 90 and you do this process, get down to 18. Now let's say we actually want to hire 90 new employees. So what do we need to do? Well, we notice that the ratio is whatever applied, you divide that by 5 throughout the whole process, and that's the number of people that get hired. So if you want to have 90 people down here, you really just need to go backwards, multiply by 5. It's 450. Okay? Quite simple. If I equals square root of -1, then what is this? Seems kind of complicated. Let's take it piece by piece. Just plug everything in and see where you end up. So I to the third, let's simplify that down as much as possible. I to the third is equal to I squared times I. It's equal to -1 times I, which is equal to -I, okay? Now I to the fourth is equal to I squared times I squared, which is equal to -1 times -1, which is equal to 1. I to the fifth is equal to I to the fourth times I, which is equal to, like we just saw, 1 times I, which is equal to I. So what do we get on the numerator? -I plus 1 plus I. That gives you just 1. The whole thing is just 1, even though it's written such a complicated way. And we'll notice something pretty similar happened with the denominator. So I is just I. I squared equals -1. I to the third is equal to I squared times I, which is equal to -1 times I, which is equal to -I. So if I add up the denominator, I get I minus 1 plus, minus I. It's equal to -1. These two cancel. All right. So at the end of it all, it's just 1 over -1. That's A. Given that f of x equals this and this is equal to this, what are all the values of x for which f of g of x equals 0? Okay, first find f of g of x. We did a very similar problem before. I believe it was f of g of -2 or something like that. Check out problem number 30. So I'll kind of speed through this one because we already did a very similar example. F of g of x is what? It's going to be x plus 5 squared minus 9. That's going to be equal to x squared plus 10x plus 25 minus 9. It's going to be equal to x squared plus 10x plus 16. And we want to find where this is equal to 0. This is going to, we just have to factor it, x plus 8, x plus 2. Factors of 16 that equal 10 when you add them. This is going to give you x equals -8, -2. You could also plug and chug. This is going to take a long time. So actually, no, you can't plug and chug. You can plug and chug to this or to anything here, but it's just going to take longer than factoring. Given that a is a positive number, b is a negative number, and absolute value of a is greater than b, which of the following is the expression has the greatest value? So let's just say, to make this true, a is equal to 3, b is equal to 2. And b is a negative number. Okay? So this is going to give you 3 minus 2 over 3, which is going to be, actually, let's pick some better numbers. Let's just do 10 b equals -5. Okay, so first one going to be 10 minus 5 over 10. This is going to be 5 over 10, which is equal to half. Okay, this is going to be a minus b, 10 minus 5 over 10 minus 5 is equal to 15 over 5, which is equal to 3. This is going to be 10 minus 5 over 10 times -5, which is -50. We're going to get 15 over -50, absolute value, all that, right? It's going to be 3 over 10. This is going to be a plus b, which is 10 minus 5 over a minus b, 10 minus 5 is equal to 5 over -15. Absolute value of that, we're going to end up at 1 over 3. This is going to be 10 minus 5 over -5 minus 10. This is going to be -5 over -15. Absolute value, all that, it's going to be 1 over 3. So greatest value, just from what I saw here, this one right here, because we're doing the a minus b on the numerator, you'll notice that always gives you the biggest numerator because you're turning the negative to a positive. And then you're doing in the denominator the smallest, which is subtracting basically. A plus b is really just subtraction. Let a, b, c, and d be real numbers given that ab equals 100, ad equals 0, and abc equals d, which of the following must be true. So ab equals 100, ad equals 0, and abc equals d, which of the following must be true. So ad equals 0, what does this tell you? One of these is equal to 0. So a equals 0 or d equals 0. Okay? Now look at this. ab equals 100. ab equals 100. In the case of a equaling 0, this wouldn't be true. So that means that a cannot equal 0. All right? So d definitely equals 0. d definitely equals 0. ABC also equals d. ABC equals d. We already counted out that a cannot equal 0. b also cannot equal 0 because it multiplies to give you 100. That means that c also equals 0. c equals 0, d equals 0. Okay? This one is true. A has to be out. We don't know that a or b are actually 1. It could be really anything. A equals -b. Again, we don't know that either. B plus c equals 0. We don't really know the numbers there. So the answer option has to be D. That has to be true. All right, we have 3 problems left. The figure below shows a laser beam pointed at the moon. At a certain moment, the laser beam forms an angle of elevation of 80 degrees from point X on the ground. At the same moment, the angle of elevation of the moon to point Y is 35 degrees. The distance from point X to point Y is 4,000 feet. What is the length in feet of the laser beam to the nearest foot? Okay, so this diagram helps. It's already all drawn out for us. So we're just trying to find this distance right here, right? So we have all 3 angle measures. The distance from point X to point Y, which is 4,000 feet. We can actually find the last angle measure by just doing 180 minus 80 minus 35, because all 3 angles have to add up to 180. 180 minus 80 minus 35. That gives you 65. Right, 65. So what I can do now is just use law of sines, because I have all 3 angle measures, and I have a side. So I have you can also try using law of cosines. I don't think it's going to be as easy, but law of sines is going to be easier here. So if I do sine, let's just assign side lengths here. Let's just say this is A, that's the other way around. Lowercase a, uppercase, and those are already assigned. Lowercase x, lowercase y. Yeah, I think we're good. We'll just do angle y. Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do is, since I'm looking for side length y, so I'm going to do sine of uppercase y over side length y is equal to sine of angle A over lowercase a. Just plug everything in. Sine of 35 over lowercase y is equal to sine of 65 over 4,000. If I just do some cross multiplication division, y times sine 65 is equal to 4,000 sine 35. Divide both sides by sine 65. We end up with y is equal to 4,000 times 35 sine divided by 65 sine. 2531. And this is I think it's feet, doesn't matter. All right. Yeah, simple as that, right? It's the law of sines makes it really easy for us. If a copyrighter charges $250 for an original slogan and $30 for each additional use of that slogan, which of the following expressions represents the cost of Y slogans? So let's make a table. So number, slogans, cost, okay? So for 0, so let's just say 1 is 250. 2 is going to be 250 plus 30. 3 is 250 plus 60. And you see the pattern for 250 plus 90. So you might think, okay, y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. My slope is just going to be how much I'm increasing each time. 30, right? Plus the original value, 250. This is actually wrong. If you plug it in using this scenario, you're not actually going to get the right value. Because if you plug in y equals, right, so when I have one slogan, aka when x is equal to 1, the y value should equal 250, right? Well, it actually doesn't, because 250, if you plug it in, is equal to 30 times 1 plus 250. That doesn't actually add up. So something's wrong. Your y equals mx plus b is actually set up incorrectly, and that's because 250 is not the b value. It's not the b value. The b value is actually where, when this is 0, what's the value here? Which in this example, there is no dollar value of when this slogan is 0, because you can't have 0. You're not paying for 0 slogans. You're not paying for 0.75 slogans. But for the sake of the equation, you actually need to model it as if you had a 0 value. So just like we're going plus 30 each time here, in order to find the 0 value, we need to go back minus 30. 250 minus 30. So it's really going to be y equals 30x plus 220. And I know I used y here. This really should be, let's just call it L is equal to 30 times y, because I know the equation, they're using y as the they're using y as the input, and I'll just call it L as the output. Okay, so 30y plus 220. Simple as that. If a window display at a clothing store, in a window display there are 2 mannequins, each of which can display one combination of a shirt and pants. To fill these 2 mannequins, John has exactly 4 shirts and 2 pairs of pants to select from, each different from the others. Selecting from these, John can make how many possible display arrangements on the 2 mannequins? The position does not matter. Okay, so this looks like a combination permutation problem. Keep in mind the following formulas. Combination n comma r is equal to n factorial over n minus r factorial times r factorial. Permutation n comma r is equal to n factorial over n minus r factorial. Usually when order doesn't matter, you're using a permutation. In this case, you have n is the number of n is always the number of objects. R is the number of spaces that you have to put in them, that you have to put the objects in. So if I plug this in here, what's my n value going to be? So the way I would do this is, you have 2 mannequins and 2 pairs of pants. It's really just going to be each gets one or the other. So it doesn't really matter. The pairs of pants doesn't matter. Let's model this as just focus on the shirts, do the permutation equation just for the shirts, and then whatever result you get, multiply it by 2, because you can switch the pants back and forth. With whatever combination of shirts you have, just switch the pants, right? So that means multiply by 2. Multiplying your possibilities by 2. Flipping the pants with these 2 mannequins. So we'll say the number of objects is 4, the number of spaces is 2. So we do 4 factorial over 4 minus 2 factorial. This is going to give you 4 times 3 times 2. That is going to be 24. Over 2 factorial, that's going to be 2. You get 12. And then just multiply that by 2, because the shirts end up being 24. All right? That's your answer here. So that is a full math practice exam. Hopefully that was helpful. I guess one more thing that I'll add to this last problem really quick. So you might be asking, why don't you use the combinations formula? Combinations formula, just to give you an example of how it's different. So imagine I gave you 3 objects and I said, okay, you have object 1, let's call it object X, Y, and Z. And I said, how many different ways can you arrange object X, Y, and Z? So you would think, okay, I can pair X and Y, Y and Z, and Z and X. 3 different pairings, right? So these are 3 different combinations. But permutations is where instead of just having X, Y, Y, Z, and Z, X, you actually count Y, X, Z, Y, and X, Z as their own individual items that you count. So combinations would mean you only care about these 3, but a permutation would mean you care about all 6. And the permutation is more, I guess it's less conservative. It allows for different orderings of the same items. Okay, does that make sense? So different orderings of the same items. It allows you to have usually permutations. The number of permutations is usually going to be higher. So in this case, if they said the position of unselected shirts does matter, that's where you'd use a combinations formula. Okay. Yeah, not going to get too much into it. But yeah, for more information on permutations, we have some videos that go over that on our YouTube channel and also on our website. So hopefully this was helpful. Again, like I said, this practice exam is on our website. So if you'd like to take it, go ahead and do so. It's one of our tests. It's modeled after official practice exams. So it's just like the real thing. And I believe it'll be really helpful for you guys. So that's it for me. Hopefully this was helpful and we'll talk to you guys very soon. See ya.